Alright, so we're going to light a candle first. That's nice. A very good morning to all of you. Uh, yes. So today's topic is going to be English Buddhism, and there's a small typo which was made a mistake by maybe the person who designed it. English Buddhism translations that misinterpret Pali Buddhism, not Pali translations, because we have Pali text. So the reason why I picked up this topic is that it is because there are huge amount of misunderstanding that goes around understanding about the true Buddhist words, not even the words, but also the contextual meaning. Before we get started, shall we respect to the Buddha? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhasse. Now, in the early, I think, 18th century, since early 18th century, we have seen that there are lots of English translations that have been done for the Pali text. Do you know how it happened? How were the Buddhist texts going to the Europe? Any thoughts about it? If you are depending on those translations, then I think it is very good, important to learn how that happened. How did they get the books? Because Europe, they didn't have the books, text. You know that Sri Lanka was colonized by many, and the last to colonize was the British. It was in almost late 17th century. So different people, I would say different officers who came to Sri Lanka to do their administrative work. They happened to visit certain temples, and then they found out Pali, I would say Ola manuscripts. And then it is said that some sold them secretly, and then sometimes they were able to access, because at that time it was their country. It's not Sri Lanka, British Ceylon. So they were able to bring them to London, and then what happened? They were able to translate these Pali text into English, that all Anglican English, not English. They say that they translated with the support of some local monks, prominent monks at that time, but we are not sure how it worked. There was a language barrier that was between them, but somehow they say that they consulted them in some ways. So one of the very famous individuals who took part in this venture was Rhys Davids and his wife Carolina Davids. Now they are the ones who first started a society, what you call by Pali Tech Society. This Pali Tech Society was initially started in London, and then they were trying to edit some of the Pali, I would say, manuscript that were in Sinhalese and then Burmese and then Siamese. So they kind of edited. They edited and saying that this is from the Siamese version, this is from the Burmese version, this is from the Sinhalese version. But they made it in Romanized letters. So the edition was in Romanized. So I cannot say that it was a complete, I would say, purified activity, but still it is good because now we have a permanent selection of these Pali texts. On the other hand, we understand how they translated. They translated all these Nikayas. What are the Nikayas? Nikayas mean suttas. Then we have Vinayas. We have Abhidhamma. Right? So they translated Sutta, Vinaya, Abhidhamma. Most of the works of Sutta. Most of the works of Vinaya. Some works of Abhidhamma. Not exactly. Abhidhamma is a very bulky, number of books. Now the problem is that now today we are trying to look at Buddhism, especially the translation issues, English translation issues. In order for us to talk about this spectrum, we have to understand whether we have a systematized set of text so far. Now they say the earliest Ola manuscript that researchers found out in Sri Lanka was dated back to 13th century. Then what happened to the 5th century Ola manuscript? 8 centuries back, the Mahavihara manuscript, they are not with us anymore, so we don't know what went with them. Some people say colonizers, they burnt, and also as a common sense, we know that Ola manuscripts cannot be maintained so long, maybe for many hundred years. Or there were other dangers that face, manuscript face. So the problem here is that how do we understand the true Buddha's words? This is one big issue. Second is, how do we understand these translations? And third area is that how do we understand the true Buddha's words as of now? There are lots of tertiary, I would say, secondary literature, commentaries, Abhidhamma, other Pali works, famous English works. They have been going everywhere. So where do we study the true Buddha's words? Yesterday I actually gave a talk at Kinrara Metta Buddhist Society about Dhamma and Vinaya, how to understand Dhamma from Adhamma. This is kind of connected to this topic in a way. But we are particularly looking at certain texts today and certain words. First, how did the Buddha classify his teachings? What was his classification? Any thoughts? Did he say he has Tipitaka? Then where does this Tipitaka classification come into existence? Now you see every monks talk about we have Tipitaka in Pali tradition. They have written in many books, we have Tipitaka, Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka. So how does this classification come into existence? This is a later classification. This is not the original Buddha's classification. The Buddha said, I only have Dhamma and Vinaya. No Abhidhamma. But Abhidhamma was a set of books which were actually made by senior monks, but they attribute the authorship, ownership of the text of the Buddha. Now you see, there's another classification is that 84,000 dhammas. 84,000. Have you ever heard that? Who said that? I have 84,000 dhammas. It is also a later addition. Later means not in the 15th century, maybe 1st century, maybe after 300 of 100 years of Buddha's time. It is said that 82,000 were given by the Buddha and 2,000 were given by the monks, senior Arahant Sangha. So, how do we understand these things? These were not given by the Buddha. Buddha said, I only have Dhamma and Vinaya. And then the monks were really confused about what would happen to them after the Buddha passed away. Who is your successor? The Buddha said, no successor as a person. The successor will be Dhamma Vinaya themselves. Dhamma Vinaya themselves will be the successor. Actually, the most important part is not Vinaya. The most important part is Dhamma. In order to protect Dhamma, there comes Vinaya. Because there was no Vinaya for 20 years. Right? For the first 20 years, there was no Vinaya. Why was it? The people were already okay. Arahant Sangha, they were okay. But as many monks come into existence, as many people from different backgrounds come into existence, then there we saw lots of issues. Some were rich people, some were educated people. When all these people come into become a Sangha, then they had different, like what we experience today. Right? Although there is an access point for becoming a monk or a nun, but if there is no, I would say, proper management about how to get them into the bhikkhu, bhikkhuni thing. Their previous nature of being an educated person or rich person or maybe administrator, those things will slowly immerse, assimilate into the Sangha or bhikkhuni practice. Right? That's why some people say maybe it's better to become a monk when they were small, so you have a proper training for many years, 10, 20 years. When you are when you bring up a child, you know that when you bring up raise child or children from their small age, you can raise well, But suddenly you read some books online and you are happy about the books and you became a monk, and it is okay. But the problem is the training part. That spiritual, mental training part that might not happen as fast as they think. Right? So there may be good individuals too, we never know, but there is a small issue. So then Tipitaka, baskets, right? Pitaka is basket, right? Sutta basket, Vinaya basket, Abhidhamma basket, right? So they put all into the baskets. Well, this is an idea, a way that how senior Sangha might have seen to preserve. So now what we have to understand is that Buddha only talked about Dhamma and Vinaya. Vinaya was actually given after 20 years. That means he did not talk about Vinaya from his age 35 to 55. From 55 to 80 till he passes away, the time it is said that he laid down some of the Vinaya rules, because some of the monks did not respect. Actually, there are issues. In my reading, there are a lot of issues. Now, you remember the Vinaya books say, it's a complicated idea. The Vinaya books say Buddha didn't have to make any rules. He had no problems with the other monks, fellow monks, till he became 55 years old. But if you see the sixth verse, I think the sixth one, he spent at the Goshitarama. In that verse, there was a big problem came up, right? What was it? What was the issue that he encountered? Anybody remembers? Anyone can remember what happened to him? What he encountered? No? Oh, in this Vassa period, he had a big issue. That means, I would say, let's find it out. All right. So this was, within his 10 years of early 10 years of his time. So what happened was that he encountered a big issue with other fellow monks. There were two group of monks actually who were formed. One was Vinaya monks, one was Dhamma monks. So they had an argument about the washroom. Some said it is good to leave some water in the bucket. Some said it is the person's responsibility. The Buddha said this is very trivial, about the washroom. Whoever wants to go to washroom, they may have their own way of doing things. But they said no. They said if Dhammadhara monk said something, Vinayadhara monk said something else. That means he didn't have a very smooth kind of fellow monks, even his first couple of years too. But the Vinaya book says no, Vinaya was not important in the first 20 years. So there are some doctrinal conflicts. If you look at the text, I'm trying to see which Vassa he spent in this temple, so then you can understand. Probably we can check Buddha's Vassa. All right, till we get there. So then that means Vinaya was there, but the problem is that people don't understand that Dhamma is more important than Vinaya, because through Dhamma you understand your Dhamma journey, you attain Sotapatti and all that. Again, coming back to our topic. Now, Dhamma Vinaya is what we understand by the true Buddhism. Then we have this classification, Sutta Vinaya Abhidhamma, or 84,000 or 2,000, right? A lot of different other classifications. They were later classifications. They were added by monks later at a different time. All right. Now, how do we look at this topic, English Buddhism? Now, I primarily say this is about what you call translations issues. How do we see the translation issues? Do we have a translation problem with the Pali text into English? Yes, we do. Now, if you go to a very famous translation site, Sutta Central. Okay, a very good website. He got the support of many other monks. Let's say if we go to one, let's go to a very minor version of the Sutta, Khuddaka Nikaya, Khuddaka Pata. Let's go to Metta Sutta. It's pretty easy to understand. Metta Sutta. And there are a couple of translations. There are 3, 6, 7. There is no one translation, right? And then if you click on here, this is the Burmese text. Maha Sanghiti Tipitaka Buddha Vanse 2500. They had 2 Sanghayana in Burma, Myanmar. And if you click on this drop down one, you see other translation. Africans, Arabic, then Deutsch, Espanol, French, Hebrew, right? Dutch, Polish, Portuguese, Sinhala, okay, Tamil, I think Chinese, everything over there. Click on them. So let's take the first English translation over here. Bhikkhu Sujato, the one who made this site. Ah, a very good one. Let me open up the text to Metta Sutta. Okay. All right. So before we jump into specific texts, do we have a fundamental issue with the translations? Now we know Christianity is a religion, or I don't know whether they might call it philosophy. So we have this branding. So in that branding, in that saying of, in that calling of saying that Buddhism is a philosophy or Buddhism is a religion, how do we understand? Is Buddhism a philosophy? Is Buddhism a religion? Let's start with that point, and then we slowly narrow down our conversation into text, because they are also English words, right? Is Buddhism a philosophy? What is philosophy? What is philosophy? The study of fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, existence, especially when considered as an academic discipline. A theory or attitude that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. Let's go for a more academic one. Philosophy means love of wisdom. In a broad sense, philosophy is an activity people undertake when they seek to understand fundamental truths about themselves. Fundamental truths. The world in which they live and their relationship to the world and to each other. This is very common to Theravada Buddhism too. As an academic discipline, philosophy is much the same. Those who study philosophy are perpetually engaged in asking, answering, and arguing for their answers to life's most basic questions. To make such a pursuit more systematic, academic philosophy is traditionally divided into major other areas of the study. In a broader sense, this is an activity people undertake when they seek to understand fundamental truths. Are we studying fundamental truths in Buddhism? What are the fundamental truths? All the aspects, we could say all the aspects. But the context of philosophy is not really touching the larger, broader sense of the Buddhist teachings. The whole context. You could cherry pick what you want. Right? Now there are people who might say, environmental Buddhism. Is there an environmental Buddhism? Is there an environmental Buddhism? Yes, the word exists, but is there an environmental Buddhism? Buddha never talks about an environmental Buddhism. He has given his ideas about environment at different times, so people call it environmental Buddhism. Buddhist psychotherapy. What is psychotherapy? It is an experimental. Psychotherapy is an experimentally based activity, and it is always changing. Science is always changing, and it is based on experiments. Yes, there are a lot of places where we see Buddha has given his Dhamma based on different people's psychological attitudes. One example, Kisa Gautami. Kisa Gautami's son passed away. It was a very tragic death, sudden death. And then what happened? She brought the son to the Buddha, asking only this primary question: can you cure my son? Can you give my son's life back? The Buddha did Buddha say, "Oh, life is anicca, he already passed away, just go and bury the body"? You see these kind of things that you hear from some people in today's world, right? What did the Buddha say? Yes, I'm going to cure him. She was very happy, but on one condition: go and find some mustard from a house where there are no dead people. in the past. But she was happy. Whatever the condition is, she was happy. She ran, carrying the dead body. She's not mentally fit to understand what happened. The Buddha knew that. Because you should talk Dhamma to someone who is mentally fit. Otherwise, nothing is going to work in that person's mind. Then she went from one house to the other house, was able to get a lot of mustard time to time. She did not actually accept them. Final question is, was there somebody who passed away in your household? Then they said, yeah, our grandmother, grandfather, maybe wife, maybe husband, somebody. Okay, then I think I'm not accepting your mustard. Then after going to many, many houses, she realized that this is a common condition. This not only happened to me, it's happened to many people. It has already happened to many people. Like sometimes you compare you to other people's pain, nah? See, I have a back pain. See, my friend, she's having a cancer. How much pain she must be suffering. Huh? Then you feel like, oh, you feel a little bit good about it. Not try to think that other person is more suffering. That can help. And you are thinking lots of problems in your life. But when you think about other people, so many problems are going in their life. I'm much better than them. It gives you some solace, some relief. Right? Appreciating your life, appreciating your people around you, appreciating your kalyana mittas, appreciating what you've been having in your life, right? So the Buddha's way of approaching Kisa Gotami worked for her. So that means in Buddhism, we are not supposed to talk about this anicca dukkha anatta to everybody at all times. We have to understand the situation, the time, the mindset, and then only we have to bring it in a certain different way. Maybe the same anicca. What happened finally was she understood anicca, but not in the first place, in another way. Remember what he gave to Chulapantaka? You know Chulapantaka? That little monk? Chulapantaka's brother was Mahapantaka. He's Arahant monk. Not a normal monk, Arahant monk. He is the one who accepts invitations from people at Jetanarama. When you invite the Buddha for a dana, he is the one who accepts. Asking other monks to go, 5 monks to go for this area, 6 monks for this area, because at that time there were no that many house danas, right? So he said to his brother, now you became a monk, but you have to memorize one particular verse within a week of time, week or maybe less than that. But he could not memorize because there was a past bad karma that hit him. The bad karma was that in a previous life, he was a very smart, genius student in the class. Very smart. Even before the teacher is writing, he says the answers. He knows what's going on. But then he was mocking, he was making jokes about other students for their inability to be genius. See, you can't answer, I can answer. Because of that bad karma, other people were very embarrassed because they were not that genius. So they were thinking, what is going to us? So they were very much suffering. Because of that bad karma, in this life, as a monk, he was not able to memorize anything at all. Just a 4-line stanza. You may also memorize that in a day or 2, I think. But he could not. Then the Buddha knew this. Then Arahant Mahapantaka said, you can't memorize a verse, you better disrobe. You can't be a monk. At that time, you had to memorize a lot. There's no internet, anything, right? So one day morning, he was very crying, and then he decided he is going to go back to home. The Buddha saw this early in the morning. He has Mahakaruna. Early morning, he is looking for somebody to help, right? And then he found out him. Then he met him. Then he asked, why you are leaving? Then he said, because my brother monk said, you better leave, you can't memorize. He said, it's okay. You don't have to memorize. Then he said, okay, I give you something to do. Take this cloth, white cloth, just rub it against your palms and just experience that. And then the Buddha went for a dana by the noon time. So he kept rubbing it against. Then he got to see, because of the rubbing, the white cloth got dirty. Then he understood the change. You know, the Patachara, I think Patachara, she became an Arahant just by seeing how the water fell down to the even place from a higher place. Anicca. Even that small phenomenon can be a good object for Nibbana. Now think about it, you are going for many places to attain Nibbana, but even a small phenomenon. Patachara just showed maybe a small water fountain. The water is cascading from the top, and then she was not just looking at the beauty side. When you see a waterfall, so beautiful, wonderful, cascading water. Take pictures. But she was thinking, what's going on here? This water is falling, cascading to the bottom. See the changes. Now the beauty at the top, and the beauty in the middle, beauty in the bottom, and then what is happening to the water? She's penetrating that process. She became an Arahant. That's why. So we don't need lots of objects. Some people asking, give me an object, give me a bhavana, give me a certain, I want to meditate. No, just the small things that are happening in your life. Since morning till evening, so how many things are going through? How many things you are watching? You have not given enough proper attention. You only saw manasikara to those phenomena, so that you lose all those precious moments, and you going for a, maybe another fixed idea that I want to go to the forest to do a meditation. But these people just became Arahant just by seeing normal things. Even you can become an Arahant one day, probably, by seeing an angry person, how he came up with the anger, how he was coming down, how he got back to normal. See his changes. And probably after 1 hour, he's a totally different person, very good person. After maybe another 1 hour, he can be changed again. All these changes. And Patachara, see how the Buddha approached Patachara. He was giving a Dhamma talk. Patachara came in. She was naked. The reason was that her husband passed away. 2 sons were killed. And then mother, father passed away. So she has no body. So she doesn't know even she wears something actually. So what happens if this happens to all of you, what will happen? Everybody is going away from you. Can you just hold on to life at that point? Because your whole world is dropping in front of you. What did the Buddha say? Did the Buddha say, hey, go away, this is a temple. You can't be so. He said, sister, be mindful. And she understood something going on. And people threw some clothes. That's a different thing, because they feel very embarrassed. But see the way how Buddha approached. So in that perspective, you can say there is a psychology, psychotherapy in Buddhism. But now people call Buddhist psychotherapy. Right? Environmental Buddhism. What are the other types of Buddhism that you have ever heard? Business Buddhism. Business Buddhism. Yes, how do you call business? No, there is some business in here. There are some places where Buddha talks about bad businesses. You can't sell human beings, you can't sell animals, you can't sell drugs, you can't sell weapons. Yeah, so business Buddhism. The problem is the overall idea, because when you say business Buddhism, how do we understand it? So I think even religion. What is religion? Let's take a look at religion. The fundamental, I would say, definition. The belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods. Is it relevant to Buddhism? I don't think so. We don't have a supernatural being. Buddha says he is a normal being, but extraordinary being. And we are not governed by the gods. I don't think religion is a proper word for Buddhism. Right? Even this ISM part, Buddhism, it can also be a problem, ISM, right? A distinctive practice, system or philosophy, typically a political ideology or an artistic movement. Buddha's teaching, a way of life. a way of life. But the problem here is that even though these wordings are not suitable to the true the Buddhist teachings, but we have to use them. Otherwise, other people do not understand it. Now, is Buddhism an organized religion? It's not a religion already, but people call it organized religion. Is it an organized religion? Do we have one leader, like the Pope for the Catholics? We don't have. Actually, Buddha himself did not want somebody like that. So a lot of people think Dalai Lama is His Holiness Dalai Lama is the leader of Buddhism. It's not a leader. He's only for one particular branch of Tibet Buddhism. So we have to carefully understand these wordings: religion, philosophy, these environmental, business, psychotherapeutic, and all these types of things. They are okay if somebody wants to study as an academic discipline, but in our practitioner perspective, there is a problem. So with saying that, now let's go to the translations part. What are the issues with the translation? Now this is the Karaniya Metta Sutta's translation by one scholarly monk. You see, Karaniya Matta Kusalena Yantang Santam Padang Abhisameccha Sakko Ujucha Sujucha Suvacho Chasamudu Anatamani. Now let's do our translation, the way how we perceive Pali. Okay, here we have those who are skilled in the meaning of scripture. Now we find a word for what is scripture here. Do we have a scripture over here? Find it out. Do any of these words refer to any scripture? Karaniya Matta Kusalena Yantang Santam Padang Abhisamicca. Where is the scripture here? Now see, those who are skilled. Yes, Atta Kusalena. We can say it is skill. Atta Kusalena. Those who are skilled in the meaning of scripture. In the meaning of scripture. I think this is what he takes as the scripture. Santam Padang. Santam Padang is scripture? Santam Padang is not scripture. Santam Padang means the state of greatest happiness, means Nibbana. How is it scripture? Now we find one very big issue over in this translation. Now let's go to another translation just to make sure that all right, let's go to the second one. See, this person has translated state of peace. That's correct. Now let's go to the another one, another translation. Lawrence Kantipalu. He has translated a state of peacefulness. Yeah, much closer to that one, better. Let's go to this translation, 1987, state of peace. Good. Let's go to another translation, Amaravati Sangha, path of peace, closer to that translation. Let's go to this translation, done in 1989, perfect state of perfect peace, closer to that meaning. Let's go to the last one, this is a Sri Lankan monk, state of calm, a little closer to that. Now see the issue. I pinpointed a very small area of this, right? I've initially translated this first translation. All right. Those who are skilled in the meaning of, is it in the meaning of scripture or in the state of peace? In the state of peace, then should practice like this so as to realize the state of, he has given the state of peace lately. But where is the scripture over here? Meaning of scripture. He has additionally added, maybe he has added additionally the practice part. He has brought scriptures to the practice, but we don't practice the text, right? We don't practice the text. We understand the text so that we are creating our own practice out of it. Let them be able, upright, very upright, easy to speak to, gentle and humble. We will see this translation. first. Let them be able. What is it? Sakko. Sakko. Sakko means able. Some translations go by skill. Skill. If you go to other translations, you could see. Skillful. He also translates to be able. Another one. Able. Able. Yeah, should be able. But is Sakko means able? What does Sakko mean? Sakko means skilled in whatever the activity. Now you see kusala. What does kusala mean? Skillful activity. Not just the ability, skillful activity. Kusala activity. Akusala activity is called unskillful activity. Skillful. Then Sakko uju. Uju suju. What is uju? Here the translation is upright. This translation, upright. Sorry, straight. This one is straight. What is straight? Struggling with this word. Sexual manifestation. Gay, straight, what straight is this? Sakko uju. Now this translation, straight. This one, so straight. Take another one. Upright. He has translated uju as upright, suju as straight. You see that difference? Then we'll see another translation. Maybe something here. He has translated uju as honest, suju as upright. Now see the issues. See these issues. So we have to understand these things. We're not criticizing all these translators. They have done a very good job. But the problem is they affect our path. Because if you wrongly understand it. So Sakko means skillful. Uju means upright. Yes, we have this word even in the Sangha Vandana. Supatipanno, Uju Patipanno. Uju Patipanno Bhagavatu. The Sangha of the Buddha, they have come down to the upright path. Upright. Then Uju Suju. Suju means very upright. What is very upright? Upright, very upright. Here, this upright maybe. How do we understand that? We normally understand this part as honesty. Uju, suju, honesty. Actually, our practice has to have lots of honesty. If you are not doing well in your practice, you are cheating on yourself. Normally, you cheat on other people cheat on other people. But we are cheating on us. We have to be very honest. It's the practice of the heart, not the mind, not the brain, not the knowledge. So, honesty. Actually, this uprightness is described as moral uprightness. You can be upright this way too, right? Keep your back upright. Which uprightness is this? Moral uprightness. What is moral uprightness? Let's say you have patience, right? You have to be able to spread patience unconditionally. Let's say you appreciate your loved ones for different good qualities. Are you able to appreciate them, other people also, for the same quality? You pick on the wrong things of other people very fast, but do you pick on the same stuff from the loved ones? So your morality should not be zigzag. It has to be upright. Good is good, done by even a janitor, even somebody you don't know, even anybody you don't like also. If the bad was done by even a good person, it's bad. Even your loved ones, even somebody else. Our morality should be upright. So that means, Uju means moral uprightness, and it was not translated properly. That's a translation problem. Then suju means honesty. This honesty comes from not being corrupted in your mind. Alobha dosa moha, right? This honesty. You know who you are, right? Then ujucha sujucha suvacho. Suvacho. Easy to speak to. Gentle in speech. Right? This is Suvacho actually means you are an easy person for other people's advices. You have a very opening up nature for the good advices. Kalyana Mitra said. We are not going to do all the sutta. I just wanted to highlight a couple of places, right? And then Suvacho. Mudu. This translation goes by gentle. This goes by meek. This goes by meek. Let's take another translation too. Obedient. Right? So what we should understand here, we should understand what is the Pali meaning. Mudu means you are flexible. You are soft. You are a soft-hearted person. Right? Right? That is what we call by mudu. You could say gentle too, but the problem is how do we understand the Pali meaning is that mudu means flexible, basically flexible. You are able to be changed whenever necessary. Then anatimani, let's stop at this place. Anatimani. Anatimani means humble in this translation, without conceit, then humble. Now this translation carries a problem. Why is it? Without conceit. This is a problem. Why is it? Where do you overcome conceit? In your spiritual practice, you have 10 fetters. Sakkaya ditti, vichikicca, silabbata paramasa, kamaraga, patiga, ruparaga, aruparaga, mana. You overcome mana after becoming an anagami. That means you have to be an arahant to practice these 15 skillful habits. It means not conceit. Conceit will only be diminished only when you become an arahant. This means humble. Just being humble. You will still have mana until you become an arahant. Because when you are sotapanna, you are checking with other people. Am I not a sakadagami yet? I have to go to sakadagami. I have to plan for sakadagami now. When you're sakadagami, maybe I'm not anagami now compared to anagamis. When you're anagami, I'm not yet an arahant. I have to be an arahant. Comparing, you're trying to, and conceit comes up. Maybe in a good way. Can come in a good way or bad way. Bad way is the bad thing. So you can't say without conceit here. Right? You can't say that. Only ruparaga, aruparaga, mana, uddacha, avijja will be gone when you attain nibbana. So in this way, you have to, now I want to emphasize, learning some Pali is very important. Now this is the problem. I could do it for a couple days. I just wanted to show you a little bit of what you can see here. Not disrespecting any of these translators. They have done what they know. they can't do whatever they don't know. Right? So a little bit of Pali is important. That's why we are trying to tell you, I'm trying to tell you that learning from the Pali way is better than learning directly from English way. You will learn in English, but then try to understand whether this is the proper translation. Alright, the time is almost up. So I'm going to then bring up something very interesting at this point. What is it? Some of the basic words of Pali that have been highly misunderstood, mistranslated. One particular good word is Bodhi, B-O-D-H-I, right? Bodhi. What is Bodhi? Bodhi is Bodhi, yeah? What is Bodhi? Any translation for Bodhi? Okay. Bodhi, this one. What is Bodhi? Now the usual translation for Bodhi is enlightenment, isn't it? What is enlightenment? Go check. We never check these things, huh? Enlightenment. This is a philosophical word. It's an 18th century word. At the same time, people use enlightenment for many other things. Let's say a violinist might say, I'm going to enlighten all of you with my violin today. I'm going to enlighten all of you with my piano, my guitar. So is it enlightenment? Bodhi vucchati chatusu maggesu jnana. Knowledge of the Four Noble Truths. Actually, what is Bodhi? Bodhi means you are awakening from the sleep of all these kilesas. Because until you attain Nibbana, you are sleeping, not in the bed, in the sansara. Buddhist means someone who is trying to awaken from that long sleep. Bud means to awaken. I will show you that. Bodhi start from the word called Pali word Bud. I hope I can find it out. Pali verb root. Yeah, you can see Bud to know. Another word is Bud to awaken. There's only one meaning here. Bud, that's the verb stem. Awaken. So better word could be awakening. Karma. Now the dictionaries all have karma as karma. Then they talk about Hindu karma. What is Hindu karma? Every action is karma. That is Hindu version, right? Whatever the things you do is karma. But Buddhist version of karma? Volitional action, not action. Volitional action, not simple action. That means most of our actions are karmaless. So you think every action is karma. It's a misunderstanding. Most of our actions are karmaless. Why is it? You might say that I was not mindful. That is why I did that bad thing. That means now two people are making karmaless actions. One is unenlightened people. One is by arahants. When arahants offer flowers, meditate, no karmas are being generated. Karmaless. And most of your actions are karmaless. But don't take it as a way to take things for granted. But because you are not intentional lot, volitional lot. But we are supposed to be volitional, then we can make a lot of good karmas. That means people can be only volitional when they do a good thing. Now today I am going to go to the Dhamma talk. My mind is good now. Ever since I came up with that idea, I am making good karmas. But if you can be volitional, a little bit mindful about your life, then you can create good karmas from being home, from being house. Why? What about that you are reflecting on a Dhamma talk you heard many years ago? Or you are reflecting about that Dhamma talk. Every moment you are reflecting, good things I learn, this is how I have to practice, this is how I can consistently, maintain my practice. You are creating kusala. Right? That means you are doing the both. Action at the same time, reflection. What are the other Pali words? Now this is karma. We call it volitional action, not action. What are the other Pali words that there may be some misunderstandings? Anyone? Avijja. What is the translation that was given by many? Avijja. Yes? Ignorance. What could be the translation for, good translation for avijja? Better translation. Yeah, literal translation is that. Vijja means knowing, avijja means not knowing, unknowing. But sometimes we have to bring the contextual meaning, going beyond the literal meaning too. Some people translate this to be unwisdom. Actually, it's true because avijja and panya. The opposite is panya, wisdom, so unwisdom. And the usual translation is ignorance. But about what? It is not given. When you say unwisdom, it clarifies. Yes, there is no wisdom about the Four Noble Truths. There is another word for this. What is it? I think I have mentioned in my sutta class. Moha. Moha. Are they same? Are they different? Meaning wise. Is this word familiar to all of you? I think so. Moha. M-O-H-A. What is moha? Yeah. Normally they say delusion. But how do we understand moha? Avijja and moha. Huh? Stupidity. Yeah, that is a bad translation, That's why we laugh, It makes us laugh, Most probably a bad translation. Moha means the one life version of avijja. One life version of avijja. One life. Now we have ignorance. We are rooted in ignorance. That's why we are reborn. We will be reborning. But in that particular life, you are going through a lot of mental states, mostly akusalas. So, the ignorance will come to you, pop up as moha. So, moha in that context means that you are deluded. Delusion. So, delusion and ignorance, I would say avijja, moha and avijja are two things. Moha is this life version, avijja is the higher, larger version of our delusion. I would say avijja. Avijja basically means not knowing the Four Noble Truths. A very good one. Samma. Samma. What is samma? Huh? Samma is equal? That is sama, not samma. See, let me write that for you. It is called sama. That is a different one. Huh? You see, samma and sama, they are two things. Now, I remember that one Sri Lankan monk was giving a Dhamma talk in a European country, then in Sinhala. And then there was only one Caucasian person. He doesn't understand anything about the Dhamma talk. This one given in Sinhala temple, Sri Lankan temple in London. And then finally, the monk was asked questions. Then he said, because he heard this Samma, said, Bhante, Samma sleeping over here. He said, Bhante, Samma sleeping over here. Some devotees are sleeping in the audience. Because he heard from the monk Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappa, Samma Vacha. He thought Samma means some are. Because he didn't understand it. Bhante, Samma sleeping over here. So, sama is equal, as you said, equal. If you are in a relationship, Buddha said, you must have sama saddha, sama sila, sama chaga, sama panya. Equal generosity, equal sila, equal panya, then equal trust about the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. At that place, equal trust between each other. Samma is different. Samma means, the usual translation is right. This is a problem. Now we also translate this to be right because popular notion is right. But is Samma right? Because some right things are wrong. Some right things are legal. I would say some unwholesome things that we see in the world, they could be right. Somebody wants to grab a gun and then go for hunting. It's right. You can kill certain animals, but it's morally not right, isn't it? Euthanasia. Right? Somebody can justify that this particular person is suffering a lot. So he can or she can write, okay, kill me with a lethal injection. Right? So somebody might say, oh, the doctor is so compassionate, he is going to accept that thing, and then he is going to inject. So both people are doing panatipata, asking someone to kill me, stabbing or taking life, giving authorization, and then somebody is coming and doing that. That is a Western concept, euthanasia. In Canada, we see that. In Canada, you can sign it. So in Buddhism, it's little un-Buddhist. Not un-Buddhist, it's very un-Buddhist. It's a fundamental thing. Because you're looking at it from that culture itself. Right? So some unwholesome actions can be right. So then, why do we put samma to be right? We just go by the system. Right is what we know. But samma cannot be right. Maybe you could say wholesome. Wholesome intention. Wholesome. When it is wholesome, you can't do anything wrong out of it. Because in Buddhism, anywhere in Buddhism, what we see is wholesomeness, kusala nature. If you bypass the kusala nature and gonna do anything else, then we have to deal with it with intention, volition. Samma cannot be right, but we usually take it, but there are issues. Any other words? There are many words. You can. You could say harmonious, but sometimes you find harmony in unwholesome ways too. Harmony is not always ethical. It can be for an akusala purpose, not for a kusala purpose. But wholesome means kusala. It's exclusive. It's exclusive for kusala practice. But you could say harmony. You could say, but sometimes people looking for peace. Today I blame that person. I'm so happy, peaceful today. I left all my baggage onto that person. So harmony can go in both ways. But wholesomeness, you can't. Definitely you have to stay on to the practice. Well, harmony is a very popular word, I would say, even in music, even in other things. People look for harmony in different, let's find out the meaning, huh? Now I'm saying harmony could not be always included with kusala aspects. Okay, I would say internet has an issue. I would say harmony does not always entail kusala perspective. It may entail akusala too. It may, because you don't necessarily add the kusala nature to harmony, necessarily. You can create a thought, yes, harmony means peace, you could say. But there may be some additions to elements of harmony at a certain point. But it is better to pick a word like wholesome, because the wholesome is wholesome. You can't do anything wrong out of that practice. Better terming. So, yeah, that's what I think about it. Knowing and understanding. Janato passato. Yeah, so it's okay. But then knowing means a different type of knowing. Passato also different type of seeing. Because, yeah. You? Okay. Excellent. Happiness. Who said sadhu?
No, when someone passes away, don't use sadhu. Is that correct?
I think you are saying sadhu at a certain point of the ceremony after chanting, right? Maybe expressing your respect to the chanting, not as a result of the death, I don't think so. Right? I mean, let's say the Bhantes are chanting and it's finished. You respect, not just putting your palms together, sadhu. That means happiness and respect to the Sangha for doing that particular activity. I don't think they are referring to the death, sadness of the person. Yeah, it's kind of a very contextual one. In Sri Lanka, it happens. Now, some monks are, teaching about Devadatta's throne in the stone. Now, devotees, Devadatta threw stones at the Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. What is sadhu in the throwing the stone to the Buddha? Because they say, in Sri Lanka, there's a tradition. Every time they say, somebody says Buddha, they say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. But the problem is, at that point, the monk said, Devadatta threw that big stone to the Buddha. Why do you say sadhu for that? Every time there is a mention Buddha, Buddha, sadhu, sadhu. That means you have to understand where you're going to sadhu at. Otherwise, you're becoming a joker, At that point, it is clear, But for a funeral, I think I never think that devotees are saying sadhu to something about the death. Yes.
Back to the Metta Sutta.
Mm.
There's this line where the mother protects her child. I can never understand those two.
The bigger meaning. Mata yata niyam puttang ayusa eka puttamam. What's the meaning of that? Just as a mother protects her only one son, we all are supposed to spread loving kindness, metta to others. What does it mean? How much love does a mother have for her only one son? I think it's a huge amount of love. So Buddha asking us to think about that level of the filial piety, the filial love towards the son, and then learn from it, and then bring and then spread the same amount of metta, that is a personal love, the filial one. Now, the metta is an unconditional one. You don't have greed about it. So learn from that mother that amount of, not the way, the way is very selfish. It could be selfish because mother is particularly giving attention to her son. That is why she is doing that. But we're not taking that way. We're taking how much love she is giving to that son. And how much nature has to be a common ground in our metta practice. Because normally when some people practice metta, they do it better to their people and lesser to the other people. It depends on how much they know. So I think we have to bring metta to everybody. Otherwise you are not going to make that practice properly. It's a structured practice. Make sense? That's how the simile works. We don't take, you might be sort of puzzled why it is the same way as a mother does to a son. Not the way. A way could be a little selfish. She has to be so, right? But the amount of love she is giving to the son is unconditional love to the son. Whatever happens, she is giving to the son. Only one son. And that nature has to be inculcated, I would say, incorporated into our metta practice. We will take one more question because I got to leave for an event. Yeah.
Is there a possibility that a particular Pali word can have two meanings?
Yes. Dhamma, D-H-A-M-M-A. Right? How many meanings does Dhamma have?
So in the context of Samma Iti and Samma Sambuddha, how would we actually look at it?
Yeah. Now, Samma means the perfect, fully. Yeah, fully, perfect. Actually, the contextual meaning is that a bodhisattva becomes self-awakened. So that is we call as the perfect, Samma. Samma at that point means perfect. Some people translate Samma to be perfect also. And Samma under the Noble Eightfold Path just means wholesome to our understanding. Because not only the bodhisattvas going through that, we normal individuals also go through this Samma. All right, so I think it's better to wrap this up at this point. If you have any more questions, please ask me, maybe any time, other time. Maybe you can join our sutta study. Yeah, always welcome. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May all the good karmas which we've been accumulating today be transferred to many individuals over here. Late Brother James Meditation Group, Chia Chi Moon and family. Liang Muk Suk and family, Lim Su Ha, Kwa Hui Hok and Kwa Chi Siong, Chan Sien Sit. Anybody who passed away in these families. and all the departed ones who passed away in the name of all of us be able to receive all these good karmas. May they be well and happy. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May Devanaga Mahidika also share all these good karmas. May they be well and happy. May they protect and bless all of us, all of you, for good health, quality of life, and prosperity. May Devanaga Mahidika also attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, before we make our last wish at this point, may we be in the company of the Kalyana Mittas all the time to continue, maintain our spiritual practice while thinking and wishing. May all the good karmas which we've been accumulating today be supportive and helpful for all of us to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Abhivadana silissa nichang vaddha pachayino chattaru dhamma vaddhanti ayuvannu sukhang balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminati saminjatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Wishing you a good day ahead of your time, and then seeing you in maybe tomorrow, maybe next Sunday. Okay. Good day. Next Sunday, I think we don't have the Dhamma talk. I think so. Probably there's a retreat over here.